Good morning, everyone. My name is Jumoke Akintaylor, and I'm the hearing officer for San Francisco Public Works. Cherise Waders is the clerk for this hearing, and this hearing is to consider appeals received for illegal pruning and removal of street trees as described in the hearing orders. So we have 3 hearing orders today. The first one is hearing order 210679 to consider an appeal for the illegal pruning of one street tree adjacent to 750 48th Avenue, and the fine issued is $2,431. The second hearing order is hearing order 210680, and this is to consider an appeal for illegal pruning of one street tree adjacent to 1831 Ocean Avenue. The fine issued is $2,431. The appellant is not present, but please let me know if there's a representative here for 1831 Ocean Avenue. And the third hearing order is 210681 to consider an appeal for the illegal removal of 3 street trees with a total trunk diameter of 21 inches adjacent to 552 Cap Street. The fine issued is $30,000. So as Cherise had mentioned, this hearing is being recorded and you can contact us through Urban Forestry. So public comments. This hearing is held through video conferencing, as you know, and would allow you to provide your public comment remotely. Members of the public may address me, the hearing officers, on matters that are within the department's jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda. And my job as the hearing officer is to gather the facts for the hearing items I just listed, listen to your testimonies, and help our director make make determination. I will not be making any decisions today. Instead, I will forward the findings from this hearing along with my recommendations to the director. The director will make the final determination. Once the director's determinations are made, the department will notify you of them. So if we have your contact information. So the hearing will proceed as follows. I will ask Sarah from BOF to speak first, present the item, give us an overall view of the process, and describe how the appeals arrived at today's hearing. Afterwards, I will have the appellant speak, and anyone supporting the appellant will speak next. Then lastly, any city agency, including Public Works, can speak and comment on any of the speakers. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The clerk will monitor the time for all speakers. When you hear the first chime or warning, it means that the speaker has 30 seconds left to speak. A second warning signals that the time is up. Comments and questions should be addressed to me and not to the department, not to Sarah or to the appellant. If you cannot finish your questions within the allotted time, you may submit written testimonies to me by the end of this hearing. And then if I feel the question is warranted, I will ask the question. Once all comments are completed, I will close that agenda item. So let us now begin. Can I have you, Sarah, make the presentation on hearing
Good morning.
order? Go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. This is Sarah Stacy with Urban Forestry Public Works. Thank you for your attendance and time this morning. My role today is to present our staff findings for each case and provide, as the hearing officer said, a brief explanation for why the fine or violation was issued. If I could have your attention for a short preliminary kind of overview of our urban forestry ordinance and some policies and guidelines that are in place for best practices to oversee the maintenance of our street trees in the city. So our department were guided by Article 16, which is the Urban Forestry Ordinance. It's codified under the Public Works Code. This ordinance establishes the authorization and standards for addressing a wide range of issues regarding green infrastructure in the public right-of-way, including what most people commonly think of as the street trees. So that's our main jurisdiction, overseeing protection and enforcement of regulations protecting those trees. We have several parts of that Article 16 that apply to these fines and violations and that support the protection of trees. This Article 16 says that it is, prohibitive to injure or destruct a tree, and we do consider pruning to be even an injury to a tree, and that's why best practices have to be followed. This slide just outlines some of the penalties set forth in Article 16. Our ordinance does allow us to issue a fine of 10,000, 10K for the illegal removal of a street tree or protected tree. Additionally, removal permit is required for all protected tree classes. That includes street trees, significant trees, and landmark trees. I believe all the subject trees of today's hearings are street trees. Our Article 16 also does require protection of street trees during construction, and this puts the onus and responsibility on contractors or people working in the public right of way to have that tree protection in place during construction. And construction work in violation of these protection requirements can be issued fines and violations. Just kind of want to define what an injury or what it means to injure a tree. This can mean any act that harms or damages a tree, including cutting, carving, painting the tree, knocking over the tree. This can be maliciously or negligently, attaching materials or objects to the tree, such as rope, wire, nail, advertising posters, signs. Generally, we'll try to send a letter to property owners telling them to remove such signs or objects from the tree before issuing a fine. So we do try to work with property owners and provide them that education and awareness. Here again, just repeating that our Article 16, the Urban Forestry Ordinance, does make it illegal to remove a tree without a permit. That fine is 10K, 10,000. In summary, trees are more than just beautiful additions to urban life. They're essential green infrastructure and an important element of the city's fabric. A permit is required to remove any street tree, significant tree, or landmark tree, and it's the property owner's responsibility to know the ordinance and regulations in the city, and we require contractors working in the city to know those regulations as well, to understand the regulations in the municipalities they're working in. Our ordinance makes it illegal to injure a tree, and these injuries can include excessive pruning, as we'll see in some of the examples today. An illegal removal of a tree requires a replacement with equivalent inches in total diameter of the street tree or tree removed. I don't think that's a discussion point today, but it's important to know and be aware of. And again, just to emphasize, it's the property owner responsibility to know the law, and really, ignorance is not a very good excuse. Just briefly, some best management practices. We try to provide a little bit of education through these hearings about tree pruning and what are the best management practices. Generally, it is not acceptable to remove more than 25% of the tree crown during a growing season or during a year. The tree relies on that canopy, that foliage, as basically as its way to get energy through photosynthesis for that tree to live and survive. So removing more than 25% of the crown can be stressful to the tree and harmful. And then there are best practices for pruning as far as how those pruning cuts are made to the branches. And this gets into some technical language, but there are proper ways to cut certain branches back to a proper node and certain size branches that you want to be able to maintain for good structure. Severing all or part of the tree is considered topping, and that is an illegal practice. And we'll look at some examples. As you can see here in the photo, this is an example of topping trees. It's kind of an indiscriminate tree pruning technique where it's just kind of given a haircut kind of across the top, or all the branches are kind of lopped off. This is not proper pruning. It's very damaging and stressful to the tree. It creates a very strong stress response in the tree. People often think when they see the tree flush out new growth, it's okay. The tree's, responding and it's acting to that stress, and it pushes out a bunch of new leaves. But it doesn't mean the tree wasn't injured or harmed. As a result of these topping cuts, what we see are weakly attached rapid new growth, and it actually creates kind of a maintenance headache, or a lot of maintenance in resources and time required to now restructure this tree because of all the new flushes of growth and these new branches. Those have to be selectively structurally pruned to improve that structure. Here you can see another photo that shows all those sprouts that have grown out of those topping cuts. So all these branches are weakly attached. It's a bunch of rapid new growth. Sometimes if this is done over and over, the topping of the tree can die. Again, I just want to emphasize it's a damaging practice and very stressful to the tree. Here you can see if those topping cuts, if those sprouts are allowed to grow out, how you can see if there were no structural kind of curated maintenance to restore this tree. Those branches and sprouts grow out and become kind of just a mess and very poor structure. Here you see all the branches are rubbing and intertwined, and the spacing of the branches is very poor. And finally, improper pruning can be an entry point for pathogens. So when pruning cuts are not made properly, it can expose the tree to pathogens and pests because when you make proper cuts, when you hire professional certified arborists who understand the best practices, they know where to make the proper cuts. And trees have a very special, unique biology where they can seal their wounds. And they have a mechanism to do that. But if improper cuts are made, they lose that ability, or it's weakened. And that's where decay can enter the tree. A lot of times people will point to some of the trees in the city, such as on California Street or in front of City Hall, and say, well, look at that tree. Isn't that what I did? Isn't this acceptable? We want to emphasize that topping is not the same as a technique called pollarding. And pollarding is a very specialized pruning technique. It's a very cultural, kind of historic pruning practice. Adopted from Europe. It is done in the city on California Street, as I said, in front of City Hall, but pollarding is only a specialty pruning practice for certain types of species, and it's only approved in certain cases. And this is a different type of pruning, and it requires a lot of maintenance. The tree has to be properly pollarded, cut back to a proper node or knuckle, as it's referred to, almost on a 2-year cycle. So it's requires a lot of resources and time. Excuse me. The high voltage power lines oftentimes will get complaints or concerns. Will receive service requests for pruning requests because the trees are touching the low voltage communication lines. We try to tell and communicate to the public that the trees can safely touch those insulated lines. It's okay. And PG&E, they are the utility company or its subcontractors that will maintain the proper clearance from their infrastructure. The high voltage lines, which are usually more than 35, 40 feet above ground and away from some of their utility poles, you'll see them pruning away from. But they are still required to abide by the best practices outlined by our industry standards. And then a lot of property owners know, but some still do not know, the city is responsible for the maintenance of all street trees. So those are trees in the public right of way. It's a population of about 125,000 trees. And we have a maintenance schedule that oversees kind of a grid-like maintenance plan for the entire city. We've completed about 72% of the city, the total maintenance needs, and we've pruned more than 85,000 trees. We have about a year left, a year and a half left before we can finish the first cycle. All right, thanks for your attention. I'm going to begin with order number 210679. Our department issued a fine for the legal pruning of one street tree at this property, 750 48th Avenue. This is the subject tree, the photo taken in February of 2024. This is a New Zealand Christmas tree, and close to 100% of the canopy was removed with topping cuts. So again, this is a very poor practice. This is a evergreen tree. It has its leaves all year round, and it relies again on that foliage as its main energy source. Not only is it harmful to the tree, I want to, tell the public, like, this looks very unattractive. And it's just not necessary. We ask that property owners wait for the city schedule. And if they do need to prune in between cycles, we will work with them. We will help them hire qualified professionals. This is another image of the tree, just from the side. And this is the tree shown in April of 2022. From Google Street View and image. You can see there the full tree canopy. The tree is below what we call low voltage communication lines. And also you'll see the high voltage above. PG&E would maintain clearance from those high voltage lines above. The tree can safely touch all those low communication, low voltage lines. And the tree is growing, up and around those lines. If there were heavy strain or some heavy abrasion, the public could submit a service request for that, and we can look at that, on an individual case-by-case basis. So just another photo of the tree taken in February. To be consistent with other cases, we issued the fine for illegal pruning of one street tree, and that ends my comments for this hearing item.
Thank you, Sarah. Can I have the appellant for 48th Street, 750 48th Street for this hearing, for this order number? Do we have the appellant here? Yes, so I believe—
You may use your raise your hand feature.
Okay.
There you go. Okay. And now you'll unmute yourself. There you go.
Please go ahead and speak, sir.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. Yeah, this is the first I've participated in anything like this. So thank you. I think the previous portion introduced by Sarah is super informative. I think my case is very unique. The pruning was not done by me. I was not hired. I did not hire any contractors. I had noticed posted no parking signs on my tree and neighboring trees in the area. When I saw the contractors who were contracted by the city proceeding work down the street, I introduced myself And I informed them that I would love to have my tree cut back as much as possible. I think what's difficult for me in this situation is I have actually called in and reported my tree and requested trimming on a multitude of times. And I actually spoke with you, Sarah, on a number of occasions. I looked, there's no there's no record of my call in the public systems. I called in between 2019 and 2022, again, asking for maintenance. The last time maintenance was performed on my tree per public record was 2017. So this is almost a 7-year window. I had taken it upon myself to do some maintenance, which is very laborious. I had also looked into hiring a contractor to perform the work, which is very costly, equal to, the fine that I am being presented with, equal to my mortgage, right? A really hefty fine. And I feel like I'm a tree lover. I work in sustainability. For the most part, right, I've had a loving relationship with this tree. And I think what's hard to convey to maybe someone who doesn't have this tree in their front yard is the amount of waste, debris that it creates. I also suffer from allergies. These trees gather a lot of pollutants from roadsides and dust. And being out at 48th Avenue in San Francisco, oftentimes talking with my neighbors, right, we feel forgotten. And, I get that there's a lot of trees. And, I think I took the appropriate channels, right, to address this with the city. Again, I did not perform this work. I requested licensed arborists who were very generous. I do not want to put any of this responsibility on them to trim back my tree in the right way. I have pictures, they reflect some of the pictures that Sarah showed. My tree is green and beautiful. I think what also I touched on a little bit of the physical effects on me mentally, it is abrasive. It is overwhelming when you look out your front window and you live in a foggy neighborhood like I do, and you suffer from lack of natural light.
30 seconds.
This tree grew within a couple feet of my front windows. I guess in closing, right, I want to be thankful for this opportunity. And, I have a lot more that I would be interested in sharing. I feel like I took the appropriate path and got no response from the city for an extended period of time. And I saw an opportunity, somebody who does not have the financial means to pay the fees, right, to get this trimmed. I saw an opportunity to do what I thought was the right way in speaking with, contractors, arborists who were in the neighborhood, and, asked them to perform, extensive, I guess, what I would call an overdue maintenance. So thank you. I know I'm probably up on time, and not sure what else I can share now.
Okay, so I have a question for you, sir. Was
Yeah.
it a city contractor that pruned the tree?
When I had initially called in after receiving the complaint, I had spoke with somebody at Public Works, and they had record of a crew performing work, in that area around the dates. But actually, these pictures were taken, I think, only I think it should be clarified, only a day or two after the trimmings were done. So the tree looks very bare, right? I did take some pictures showing its current status, and it's flourishing. It's green. My neighbors regularly compliment on how the tree is looking. And I do have written documentation from my neighbors who support the trimming and wish that, maybe they had the means or the opportunity to do the same. So that was a long-winded answer. My apologies.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that
Yeah.
you're not sure if it was a city contractor
Yeah.
that pruned this tree?
They
Correct.
were contracted by the city. They
They were
performed
contracted, okay.
They performed work on all of the trees,
Got it.
obviously to a lesser degree on my block.
Thank
And
you.
also, we're in the immediate area for a couple days.
Okay, Sarah would confirm to see if that was a city contractor. Thank you, sir. All right, do we have any public comments on this? If you have any public comments, please raise your hand so that we can promote you to panelists and hear you speak. Any public comments? Okay. In the absence of any public comments, this hearing, unless Sarah, do you have anything, any comments for this hearing order before I close it?
Could I mean, I think that picture, right, it looks very bare. It's days after the tree was cut.
So,
I mean,
yeah, in absence, we've moved on to public comments, and I've
Right.
heard your testimony. You can send, if you have something else to add, you can
Perfect.
send your comments. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Hi, Ms. Stiller. This is Sarah Stacy, Urban Forestry. I appreciate Andy's time. I can confirm, and I do know we did have our contractor WCA working in this area, and I do know it was in February, and I was doing audit of their work just around this time, like the 26th, 27th, and 28th. So just around this time. I just find it strange that they would have pruned this much, and I know the other New Zealand Christmas trees were not pruned in the same way. So I am a little disturbed that they would have done this based on a property owner's request.
But you check with them and
But I will
confirm.
check
Okay.
and confirm.
Okay. Thank you. I'll make a note of that.
Okay.
So in the absence of any other comments, public comments on hearing order number 210679, that hearing order is now closed. We are going to move to the next one, 210680. And this is for, so is anyone here for 1831 Ocean Street? Because I have that here and I know the appellant is not here. Sarah, do you want us to skip that and just go to this 210681?
No one is here for the
Okay.
Ocean Avenue.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Is anyone here for order number 210680? Okay, so no one is here. We'll move to this to the last one here, order number 210681 552 Cap Street. This is to consider an appeal for the illegal removal of 3 street trees with a total trunk diameter of 21 inches. And this is at 552 Cap Street. Go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, this is Sarah with Urban Forestry. Again, this was an illegal removal. We issued the fine. It's 10K per tree for the legal removal of a tree without a permit. So the fine was issued for 30K for the illegal removal of 30 street trees. There's a lot of background to this case, so I'm going to be using the hearing cover sheet to summarize a lot of the information here. So again, 3 trees were removed without a permit. This is related to a building permit. The building owner or community group there is the Community Music Center, and they were doing some construction there, to my understanding. They did submit to the hearing officer kind of a graphic chart showing the history of all the steps. And they applied for a tree removal in May of 2022. Then they removed the trees without a permit. The permit had not been issued. The applicants came to Urban Forestry to get their final sign off for the end of their construction project. This is, several, a lot of time later, several years later at the end of their project to get Urban Forestry sign off. New trees had been planted. Placement of the trees and size of the planting species was adjusted based on staff input. Our staff discovered that trees were removed without a permit, and that's why we issued the fine. The building permit was allowed to be closed out so that we can work with the property owner and not hold them up on them allowing access and use of their building. A little bit more about the existing trees that were removed. One was a cherry tree. It was dead. So we consider its value to be basically $0. For dead trees in the public right of way, generally a permit wouldn't be required. But if, this was construction related, the property owner, would have submitted that removal permit, and they had. From my understanding of this case, our department hadn't looked at the removal permit, and it hadn't been issued. And we do often say, it's still the responsibility of that contractor or property owner or applicant that they do have that removal permit on hand when they remove the trees. That is their responsibility. The second tree that was removed, it was a small cherry tree. We appraised its value as $200. So this is less than what we consider the standard in lieu fee, or the basic fee for what we call the in lieu fee. It basically is the value of what it costs to purchase a 24-inch box tree and water it for 3 years. And then the third tree that was removed was an India hawthorn, a very small type of shrub-like tree. It's no longer on our planting list. We considered it healthy at the time based on street view images, and we appraised this again less than the standard in lieu fee. It appraised for $600. Again, as I said, when we went here to look at the right of way, to look at the plantings, to make sure everything was in conformity with our guidelines and standards in preparation for signing off on their job card. They had planted 3 replacement trees, the Chinese elms. I'll note that the inspector for this area noted that one close to the ADA ramp is not the best species there. And I think she may be requiring the project to swap that out for a different species as part of the closure of this fine. Some recommendations for the replacement of that last tree are a Washington hawthorn or a trident maple. Let's see here. Just to summarize, the Community Music Center was fined only after they sought Buff's approval for the trees that were planted to close out the project. We believe this action was undertaken in good faith and with the intent of adhering to city guidelines. That's why we issued the fine. The Community Music Center proactively planted 9 new trees on the property, including the street trees, and then also what would be future significant trees. Again, we issued the fine just to be consistent with other cases. And then again, they've already planted the replacement species, and I believe the area inspector is just for the closure of this requiring one of those trees to be replaced with a more suitable species.
So just before I call up the appellant, let me understand this. So they have planted these replacement trees, and there's a recommendation for them to replace the Chinese elm with the Washington hawthorn or the trident maple, correct?
Yes, I believe just one of them, the one
Just
near
one.
the ADA ramp.
Okay, yeah, this one that we're looking at. And in addition to them replanting these trees, there's still a fine of $30,000? Or that is going to go away because they have planted these new trees? Please help me understand that. The
That would be,
$30,000 fine.
what the decision and result of this hearing is to determine is if
Okay.
that fine should be waived.
Okay. So can you help me understand the 30,000, how it was assessed, how it got to that 30,000, just for me?
Sure. We start, just from our Article 16, the code that says for each illegal removal, that fine is 10K or 10,000.
Okay.
So regardless of, the size or condition of the tree, that's kind of our starting place.
Got
Even
it.
though, I think, it's important, these are the facts of the case that like one of the tree was dead and
Mhm.
the 2 others, what their value were. So, we're digging into the details of the case and trying to understand perhaps why the fine should be waived.
Okay. Okay, got it. Thank you so much. Can I have the appellant come up and speak, please? Can you please raise your hand? There is, if you go to, there's an, okay. Austin has raised their hand. Please, can you go ahead and promote them?
Yes, hello. I'm Austin. I'm the architect on the project. Thank you for your time, and I do want to apologize for all this. This is definitely unintended, and I'll explain how we got here, I guess. So I'm going to summarize the pre-construction and permit activities that brought us here. Michael Garde of Oliver and Company will talk about what occurred during the inspection process. So in February 2020, we were advised by DPW by phone to replace the trees voluntarily because they're in poor condition, and because of our upcoming project and doing sidewalk utility work for the project, it made sense just to have new healthy trees in the end with a fresh new sidewalk and white zone and curb cut there. So during the process, we applied for street tree removal and street tree planting permits. The removal permits were paid in May of 2022, and the planting permits were paid in August of 2022. Because the street tree permits were paid and we did not receive an approval or disapproval of these permits after over 6 months, we overlooked the fact that these permits were still under review and proceeded with removal in December of 2022. Similarly, the street tree planting permits were under review for nearly a year by the time planting began, and because they were paid and we had not heard from BUF regarding their status, we incorrectly assumed they were approved. As we were having the trees planted in June of 2023, I was in direct contact with BUF because the contractor was encountering difficulties with shallow utility lines in the planting areas. I referenced the property addresses and asked for advice from BUF and was told to have the contractor make it work. Oliver and Company was able to make it work and got these trees planted. I had additional follow-up with BUF to verify the species of street trees we applied for to make sure we followed the intent of the permit. During these conversations, there was no mention that our permits were still in progress or that we should stop work and wait for approval. So we had the trees planted. It was not until building permit sign-off late last year that we were informed that permits weren't approved. At this point, they had been in the system for over a year. So during the whole process, we were transparent and clear with our intended actions and carried out the work with good intentions, both to benefit our client and also the community they serve. We had new lush landscaping planted in the front yards of both properties, including 9 new trees, plus the 3 new street trees. Our entire project team plans to use this as a learning experience. It will not let this happen again. We will be more proactive in the future and we'll be sure to check with DPW and BUF before proceeding with work that has not been explicitly approved. I hope I conveyed the fact that we went about this under the impression that we were doing good for the property and the city, but unfortunately misunderstood the process. I'd like to request that the fines are reversed with the promise that the projects that involve Gelfand Partners Architects, Oliver and Company, Ventura Partners, the construction manager,
30
and PNC,
seconds.
will not make this mistake again. And that's all I have to say with my time.
Thank you. So let me ask a question.
Sure.
You applied for the tree removal, you waited 6 months, and did you follow up on those applications with Public Works by any chance to get the status on them?
We did not check the status. We thought that these were more procedural, like we paid the permit and we would have heard back if there was an issue.
Okay.
It seemed like it was long enough time. I mean, unfortunately, it wasn't really like top of mind that there was a question that this may not be approved. We thought it was just you pay and you do
Okay,
it.
got it. Understood. Thank you for that clarification. So we have OLC. Cherise, we have OLC's hand up. Please go ahead. You have 3 minutes. We can't hear you. Okay. While you try to fix your audio, is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay. So, Julie, please go ahead. Unmute yourself, please.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good morning, Ms. Aiken-Taylor, Ms. Stacy, and everyone from the Bureau of Urban Forestry. I'm Julie Roliak Steinberg. I'm the Executive Director of the Community Music Center. Very grateful for the opportunity to come before you today on behalf of CMC to share a little more about our work in the community and to request consideration in waiving fines that were levied against us for these tree replacements in our recently completed project. We are a beloved institution in San Francisco. We're 103 years young and are dedicated to making high quality music education accessible to everyone. We offer a range of programs and services that enrich the lives of people of all ages, backgrounds, and levels of ability. We work with very young students and the young at heart, serving more than 3,400 children, teens, adults, and older adults around the city. Over 70% of our students receive tuition assistance that totals over $3 million each year. We also offer 7 tuition-free programs that reach more than 1,000 students. And we're a proud partner of the San Francisco Unified School District, the City and County of San Francisco, and numerous national and local arts and community-based organizations. As you've learned, we've maintained a home here in the Mission District since 1921. And for the last 12 years, we've worked diligently to develop and execute this campus expansion project to improve the accessibility, the functionality, and the beauty of our flagship home for more than a century. We intended to create a more inclusive and welcoming environment for our students, our instructors, and the wider community. Throughout this project, we were mindful of our responsibility to our neighbors and the community. We really tried to minimize disruption and to enhance the local environment. Our Mission District campus is regularly described as an oasis for music lovers, our neighbors, and other artists, and we're proud to be able to continue to operate and pursue the mission that truly reflects the quality of our programs with this new facility. We are really grateful for the contributions of our project team. You've heard from Austin. I know you'll hear from Michael. They align to our values of care for the community, and they work tirelessly with us to make this project a success. I want to echo what Austin said, which is all of our efforts were made in good faith and with a sincere desire to both contribute positively to our community and to comply with all the regulations related to a large and complex project like ours. We realize that despite these efforts, aspects of our projects related to the street tree removal may not have fully complied with what was required, and that did result in those fines being levied against us. We are very sorry and we regret these oversights on our parts. And I want to emphasize again that our primary goal has always been to support and uplift the community and to make our neighborhood a more vibrant and beautiful place. We ask for your understanding and consideration in waiving these fines so that we can focus our resources, which are severely limited, on providing music education to our community. Thank you for your support and partnership in fostering our part in that. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Steinberg. Okay, is there anyone else that wants to speak? If you can, please raise your hand and we would promote you. Yes, Q&C, can you? So we have, okay, please go ahead. Q&C. We still can't hear you. I don't know if there's something wrong with your audio. You may want to use the call-in number. Try that. Can we have Nena?
And you
Okay.
can also submit written testimony as well to the Urban Forestry at sfdpw.org. I put that in the chat.
Can we have Nina Aldaz? Please go ahead. See.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Amazing. Okay. Good morning. My name is Nena Aldaz, and I am a former student of CMC, now a full-time faculty member who serves the community. I want to share a bit of my story to provide testimony of CMC's great work. I grew up with a single mom, and we couldn't afford the same opportunities as others, but CMC offered me a scholarship that was the crucial stepping stone I needed to propel my career forward. And I ended up getting my master's in music, which wouldn't have been possible without their support. I learned what it takes to be a great musician here, but also a lot of important life skills that inspired me to be the best person I can be. And I know that other students feel the same about their education here. I really think that the money that CMC has needs to go towards the community that it serves and not towards a fine. There's so many students like me that have no access to the arts, that struggle to keep afloat in this economy. And I know that when they come to CMC, they see the beautiful buildings and trees and find a home that welcomes them. It's a place where they can express themselves in a safe way and thrive no matter what. I really think that if CMC has to pay this fine, it's disservice to the whole CMC community, but also to all of San Francisco who benefit from the joy that CMC provides.
Thank you. All right, thank you. I see Estela's hand is up. Please go ahead, and Cherise, if you can promote.
Okay, my name is Estela Moreno, and I was first introduced to CMC Older Adult Choir by a show that I attended back in 2011. The show was called La Posarela. That was directed by Marta Rodriguez. And a choir was singing in this show. So I told my niece, who was an angel in this show, that I wanted to sing in the choir. She told me, just contact CMC. And I spoke to Marta. She accepted me, and I started singing. Joining the choir made me feel very happy, connected, and supported, because I had just lost my parents and I was depressed and lonely. Then new members came in who had been in a study for 1 year by UCSF with CMC to mount 12 choirs around the city as part of the study, to examine the benefits for older adults who sing in community choirs. And after 5 years, the studies show that singing in a choir decreases loneliness and increases interest in life. I know one choir member who was isolated and depressed and joined Coro de la Treinta, which is another one of the choirs. She felt connected, made friendships, and ultimately started teaching a Mexican dance class there. And these choirs are free for all of us. During the pandemic, CMC and our choir teachers and the choir members, we worked very hard to connect our members on Zoom to continue singing, because, you know, for us being cooped up in our homes, we needed that connection with our choir members and our teachers. So the other thing is that we got the lyrics to the members, because normally, you know, our teacher provides lyrics, but then when we were home, nobody couldn't give them to us. So members started volunteering to drop off lyrics to their homes. We found also that people were needing groceries. And so members, again, we formed this community in the choirs that I treasure. So the collaboration and partnerships, the CMC in 15 neighborhoods, centers like Mission Neighborhood Center around the city, allows for 350 adults to benefit from these tuition-free classes. I have been singing in 3 of the choirs for the last 13 years, and I couldn't be more grateful to CMC and Mission Neighborhood, Coro de la Treinta, and Centro Latino for their
30 seconds.
free offer choirs for older adults and what that means to me and them. So please waive that fee. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I don't see any other. I still QNC. I see QNC's hand again. We hope your audio is working.
ONC.
Oh, sorry, ONC.
We're gonna try them one more time. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, now we
Yes.
can hear you.
Oh, I am so sorry. I tried 2 separate phones and now I'm on my second computer. Okay, I apologize for the communication errors here. Yeah, my name is Michael Garday. I am with Oliver & Company. I was the project manager. I, along with my superintendent, the design team, the ownership, and the construction manager oversaw the construction at CMC during the course. I want to start by saying that, at Oliver & Company, we try our very best to follow all building codes, rules, and regulations because we understand that they are in place and they serve a purpose. That purpose is to ensure safety and resilience. They're intended to protect public health, and in the case of our very specific situation here, provide a greener and healthier San Francisco. At Oliver & Company, we also try to maintain a rapport with all building officials. We try to maintain open communication. I think we've shown that over the last several months. There's been inspectors and officials that I've worked on several projects with across San Francisco, and we do several projects a year in the city. A lot of the findings, or excuse me, a lot of what Austin shared, a lot of what Julie shared, and even what Sarah shared, it's all accurate. One thing that Austin stated that I'd like to clarify is that Ms. Akin-Taylor, you had asked if there was any follow-up on that permit, and Austin did actually follow up with the Bureau of Urban Forestry, and I believe there's email documentation showing he followed up. I don't believe there was a response when he had followed up, though. Other than that, we don't refute any of the findings by the Department of Urban Forestry. We did remove 3 street trees. The permit wasn't issued. However, again, those fees for that permit and the planting permits were paid in May of 2022, and those trees weren't removed until December of 2022, and that was 6 months had gone by. If there was a lapse in the process, if there was a step that was missed, we acknowledge that. With everything that we've learned over these last couple of months, we are very aware of the process now, and I can guarantee you that, that won't happen again. Again, going back, touching base on the open communication that I had with Inspector Allegra Mottner with the Bureau of Urban Forestry, when we went to try to get the final, we were notified of the penalties and the fees. And since then, actually, let me go back.
30 seconds.
Open communication. There were several correspondence back and forth with Inspector Allegra. We had several corrections that we had to make, and I believe that they were made in a very timely manner. They were made without any reluctance. And I think that just shows that we're more than willing to work with the city and do what we can. I believe my time is actually coming up here, so I'll end there. I just want to acknowledge that we're aware of the correct process, and we're aware of the tree care class hosted by Inspector Allegra, and we're more than willing and actually eager. I think there's several people on the design and building community here that want to take the class, and we are more than willing to do that.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments for hearing order number 210681?
Just as the Public Works representative, may I just make a last comment?
Yes, please.
I will just state that in these cases where there is an illegal removal, oftentimes the procedure is that we ask them to submit a retroactive removal permit. But in this case, they did already have the removal permit on file with us. It just hadn't been issued. So I just will clarify that they did have the removal permit application in place. I don't think Buff had issued it yet, but the permit was paid for.
And also the replacement was also, I believe they said they submitted an application for replacement as well. That's what I have. Apply for removal 6 months and replanting. Did they submit an application for replanting as well?
Yes.
Okay. And that was also submitted in May of 2022?
It would have all been captured as part of their original application.
I'll look at that.
Yep.
Okay, so they did have both in place, and from what Mr. Austin had said, that there was a follow-up at some point. Okay. All right. If there are no other comments, thank you all. I think that now closes this hearing. I appreciate your time here, and I would have my recommendations to the director, and you'll be notified of the findings of the determination.